Before the last round, the leader Bulgaria or the Bulgarian team knew that they are going to win at least a medal. However, the gold medal wasn't sure yet. They had to win against Georgia or make at least a draw, which means a 2-2. However, Bulgaria wasn't the favorite in this match. Literally on every board, Georgia had the stronger player, at least according to the ELO rating. And on board 1, the top pairing, Antonetta Stefanova, former world champion from 2004 to 2006, was playing against Bella Khotenashvili, a very strong Georgian woman grandmaster and also a grandmaster. So she also has the normal grandmaster title. This being said, let's just go to the game and see why this game might decide the event. Antonetta Stefanova playing the white pieces opens the game with first e4, and Bella Khotenashvili playing the black pieces responds with c6. And the game is probably going into a Caro-Kann. White decides to play knight to c3, and now inviting black into a two-knight variation. After d5, indeed, it's a Caro-Kann. After knight f3, it's the two-knight variation. However, white could have also gone d4. So knight c3 is rather flexible. But let's go back to the game. Knight to f3, d takes e4, the main line, knight takes e4, knight to f6, and now white setups this very well-known trap. If black plays knight b to d7, then you probably know what to do. It's knight to d6, checkmate. The pawn is pinned, the knight cannot be taken, the king cannot be moved, and it's checkmate. And be aware, because this happened in a few tournament games, especially on the youth level by some 1800 players, so rather good players, from which you might not expect such a basic mistake. Of course, a grandmaster knows this, and black plays knight takes e4, now queen takes e4, knight to d7, bishop to c4, and now knight to f6. So in two moves, this bad knight on b8 was able to appear on f6 and be much more active. However, the knight is attacking the queen indeed, but thinking that a queen retreat or queen move is the only way to play here is far from true, and the reason is that a move like knight e5 is threatening checkmate, so the queen is not en prise, because then the king is simply mated and black loses the game. So be aware that there are such threats. However, in the game, Antonetta Stefanova decided to go queen to e2. And in order to understand the differences, let's go back for one moment and look at this knight e5 variation. After knight to e5, the only reasonable way to defend against this is e6. And now the queen retreats to e2, and basically we have the same position but with the knight on e5 and the pawn on e6. And suddenly you can see, oh, this bishop on c8, it has no access to f5. So it's rather limited. Not a great piece. But this is not the game. In the game, queen to e2 was played immediately, and now black is free to play bishop to f5. However, after thinking for 18 minutes, black decided to go with b5. And this move looks active, but it doesn't really fit into the system, because if white allows black to play bishop f5, he should, or she should do it. In this case, she should do it. So white continues with bishop to b3. Bishop to d3 was possible too, but it looks somehow unnatural because it's blocking the d-pawn. So bishop to b3, but although this move has some drawbacks, because after e6, it looks like the bishop here on b3 isn't a great piece. It's hitting the opponent's pawns, which are defended. However, this bishop on c8 isn't much better for the moment. So white continues the game with a4, trying to gain something on the queen side. And now black is pretty much forced to play a6, and this structure is very similar to a semi-Slav. However, in a semi-Slav, d4 is already played, the c4 pawn is already gone, and the bishop is not on b3 but d3, and also the queen might be on another square than on e2. But the ideas or the structure looks very similar. So the ideas might be similar to some extent. And we will see a very big similarity. After the move knight e5, queen c7 attacks the knight, which is defended by the queen, and also defends this pawn. So c6 is defended now. d4 played. White grabs space in the center and also defends the knight one more time. So after bishop d6, there's nothing to worry about for white, and she continues the game with c3. And now it's black's turn, and black should have castled, but instead she played rook to b8. But let's go back for one moment and see how the game could have developed. So black castles, white castles, and bishop to b7. And we know these ideas from the semi-Slav, or at least now you know them. Black tries to push c5 and get a great bishop, which is hitting a lot of squares, especially on the king side. Dangerous squares, like g2. But this was not played. Hotenashvili decided to play rook to b8, basically giving up the a file, and I didn't understand this move. But there might have been an idea. So white continues with the development, bishop to f4, black castles, white castles. And now after a move like, let's say, c5, white is slightly better, and black may find back into the game somehow, because this bishop still needs to be developed. So the c8 bishop isn't such a great piece. However, in the game, black took on a4, probably thinking that now the b file might be dangerous, and also the pawn on b2 doesn't look too strong. However, after the move bishop takes a4, it's obvious that white has a very good position. Black played c5, then followed rook f to d1. Now white has finished her development and is putting the rooks on better squares already, while black is still struggling with the bishop here on c8. And now in this position, according to the engine, black should try to close it with c4, and white has an advantage. Not a small one, but also not a too great advantage. However, in the game, knight to d5 was played, and here it's already very difficult for black. Of course, she is hitting this bishop on the f4 square, but this bishop can just retreat to g3, and now the position of black is very difficult. It's very difficult to play. Black played f6, and after this move, white seems to be winning already, and there's not much black could have done differently from now on. Knight to c6, and now the rook is attacked, and also the pawn on e6 isn't the strongest piece. This knight might be attacked with c4. But first, black takes on g3, and now h takes g3. But this also serves white to some extent, because now back rank mates aren't going to happen, or at least they are not very likely, because the king can escape to h2. So even this trade of dark squared bishops might favor the white king. Apart from that, weakening the black squares is usually bad for black in such structures. Now black tried to trap the knight on c6. However, this is not working because of the very strong c4. And now, of course, if black just took, then she would have lost material, and this position is already very difficult to play for black. Material down was developed, not good. So knight b4 was played, and now followed the very strong d5. And this move is not only attacking the e6 pawn, but it's also defending the knight. Of course, taking isn't really working, because then simply knight takes, and exchanging knights also doesn't work, because now the pawn takes on c6 and black is in a very bad situation due to this passed pawn, and the bishop on c8 still is lacking good squares, and the queen as a blockader is probably the worst piece in this setup. So don't use your queen as a blockading piece against passed pawns. This is not, very often it's not good, let's put it this way. So queen to d6 was played, and now follows the very strong d takes e6, a strong passed pawn, and now white is completely crushing black. So queen takes e6 was played, and after this white exchanged the queens, and now comes the idea of white. It's your turn. Try to find the move which made it clear that white is going to win the game. It's rook to d6. A very strong move, because after knight to c6, which was played in the game, that white does not take on c6, but first takes on e6. And now you can see, oh, this knight is pinned, it cannot move. So rook to c8 was played. However, white continues with rook to d1, so the knight is still pinned. King to f7 played, but this is far too slow, because the d rook can enter the d6 square, and now the pinned knight is attacked a third time and cannot be defended enough. So black, playing desperately, took on b2, then followed bishop takes c6, and white is up a piece for a pawn, completely winning. And after the moves a5, bishop to d5, king to g6, rook to e7, black decided to call it a day and resign. And the reason why I said that this game might or was the decisive game is that although Bulgaria was weak on literally every board against Georgia in this match, Antonetta Stefanova won this game very fast. This means that basically the entire team knew they only need 2 more draws out of 3 games, and they have enough points and cannot be caught by anybody, and they are the European champions. So this might have given the team the stability and also the optimism to play for the win, and indeed they succeeded in gaining over 2 points. They even won the match and won the European Championship. As always, I hope you liked this video. If you did so, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe. See you.